This is the English 2.0 podcast. Communicate globally. Raise your level. Speak English naturally. Hello and welcome to another episode of the English 2.0 podcast. My name is Al. In fact, today it is episode 13, lucky 13 should I say. And thank you so much for watching. I believe at this point in time there have been just over 11,000 downloads from about 48 different countries. Wow, I'm just amazed by that number. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the English 2.0 podcast. I'm very lucky that you have decided to spend your time with me each and every time I put out a new episode. So thank you so much for downloading and or watching. As you know, in this podcast we don't always talk about phrases and grammar and stuff like that. Of course it's important, but we want to talk about how to truly raise your level, how to rise above the average level, rise above the average English speaking student, people who are learning English as a second language, okay? Because we realize that being average, being normal is not necessarily a good thing. In fact, in most cases, it's not really that good. We want to be excellent, and we want to be exceptional. We want to be on that next level. We want to be communicating at a very high level. And that's the reason I put out this podcast, is I want to talk to people just like you who have the same, way of thinking as me, and the same way of thinking as this English 2.0 community. And so today we're going to talk about common fears of speaking English. So please keep watching for that. But first of all, as usual, we'll go to a question, and it comes from Twitter. All right, today's question comes from a Twitter follower. Cindy is lucky. Cindy wants to know, what is the difference between I like ing and I like to something? So let's use an example. I like playing tennis, or I like to play tennis. What is the difference between those two? Well, that's an easy one, Cindy, because the answer is they're both the same thing in this case. So when you use the word like or love or hate, those three in particular, in this case, I like ing or I like to, absolutely the same thing. There's no difference in the meaning, no difference in how natural it is. They're both very, very common ways to express that in English. Now, that is only for those few examples, those few words like, love, or hate. If you are talking about certain other words, for example, enjoy, I'm sure you've studied this in your textbooks, enjoy can only be used with ing. So I enjoy playing tennis. I enjoy to play tennis is grammatically wrong. Why is that? I have no idea. So you have to ask the inventors of English. I have no idea. Another example on the other side is I plan to. Okay, so I plan to play tennis this weekend. Well, we would not say I plan playing tennis this weekend. Very strange. Probably grammatically wrong as well. So those are just a few examples. But in the case of like, both are okay. Both are fine. I like playing tennis. I like to play tennis. Please use those with confidence. And very good question. Thank you very much. All right, in today's main topic, we're going to talk about fears of speaking English. All right, now I know when we speak another language, our second language or third language, we sometimes, feel afraid because of different reasons. And today we're going to discuss those reasons because I think it's important that we really understand why we're often afraid, because it may cause us to be hesitant or not communicate successfully in the future, or not allow us to reach our future goals. So let's discuss 3 of these fears today. The first one is the fear of not being polite enough. Okay, so for example, perhaps in a business setting, writing email or meeting a client, or not even in business, perhaps on your personal time, meeting a friend overseas. Sometimes we feel like, not intentionally, we're not being rude, but we feel like we might accidentally say something that may cause the listener to feel offended or just discomfort or possibly angry. And so we sometimes tend to be hesitant when we speak, and sometimes it can interfere with our message to the listener. Okay, so how do we overcome this fear of not being polite enough? Okay. Well, really have to understand that it's very hard to offend someone in English, in my opinion. You really have to, feel it, in your heart, and you really have to, know the language that you would use to offend someone or be very impolite. In my opinion, it's very hard to cause someone to feel discomfort or anger toward you without really trying. Okay, so in other words, if you say something that is not the highest level of politeness, but just a little bit below the right level, I think the listener is going to understand, and the listener is going to really take that into consideration and know that perhaps it's just a cultural misunderstanding, or they're going to give you a little more slack, as we say. They're not going to be so offended. So, in other words, the cure for that is, just try. You have to try, you have to test. Now, if you are still very afraid of this, the best thing is to test with your teacher and ask your teacher for feedback. If you're feeling a little more courageous, test it out with a client, or the next time you meet your friend, and just notice their reaction, watch their feedback, and see what works, see what doesn't work. And don't be afraid, just test it out. Just know that it's very, very hard to really offend someone in English. So give it a shot. I'm sure you can do it. All right, the next fear we'll discuss today is the fear of not being understood. Okay, so for example, if you say something and the listener gives you a strange look like, what? Or perhaps they don't make eye contact with you and they lose interest. Okay, well, yeah, that is a bit scary of a thought if somebody doesn't understand what we're saying, because that'll cause us to feel, we'll feel like our English is not good enough, in our skills are not good enough, our vocabulary is not enough to communicate successfully. We're going to be discouraged to communicate the next time, or we're going to lose confidence in trying to, speak English in the future. Okay, so how do we overcome this fear? Well, we have to understand, we have to trust that the listener is listening to try to communicate with us. Okay, they're trying to understand us. They're not listening to point out all of your mistakes. Okay? They want to hear your message, and they are interested in you. That's why they're talking to you. Okay, so in many cases, they're going to give you another chance. Okay, they're going to say like, "Oh, I'm sorry, could you say that again?" Or I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Could you rephrase that? Or something like that. They're going to give you another chance to let you explain what you mean. Okay, so instead of looking at this as failure, look at this as a great opportunity. And this is an opportunity for you to try again. Okay, and when you try again this time, the important thing to remember is use simpler language. Okay, try with simpler words, easier words. Okay, because the goal now is not to have perfect, beautiful English. The goal is to be understood. Okay, and when you are understood by the listener this time, it's going to raise your confidence. Okay, they're going to understand you, and for next time you go home, then you study, you think about what happened, and then you can make adjustments for next time. But it's going to give you confidence to go and try the next time. So, give it a shot, and don't be afraid to not be understood, because you're going to get another chance. If I don't like to use the word failure, but if you do fail to be understood one time, think you're going to get another chance to correct yourself or make adjustments for next time. And that is the important thing. All right, the final fear we're going to discuss today, I think, is the most common fear of them all, and that is the fear of making grammar mistakes. All right, we're all afraid of making grammar mistakes, and why is that? Okay, if I just said before that, there's really no right or wrong in the real world. It's just, understand or don't understand, or don't be understood. Why are we afraid of making grammar mistakes? Okay, well, of course we need basic grammar to be understood. Okay, I'm not saying it's not justified. Of course, it's very natural to feel afraid of that. But what are the other reasons? Okay, well, we have to think about our cultures. We have very test-taking type cultures where, when we take a test of anything, but particularly English or language, there's often a right or wrong answer. Okay, and through these kind of tests that we take, we kind of develop this fear of making mistakes, because if we make a mistake, our test score is going to be lower. And that's just a natural part of the system. What happens then is we become afraid to speak in the real world because we're afraid of making these same mistakes. Okay, now the reason why this fear is so destructive to people's learning and communication is because it often affects how you speak. Often when you feel afraid of making a mistake, you're going to, have breaks in your speech. Your pace is going to be off. Sometimes you're going to stop and start again, and it's just going to cause a lot of damage to your fluency and to your overall communicative effectiveness. And so that's why we've got to overcome this fear as soon as possible. Now, how do we do that? Okay. Well, the most important thing is to know that making mistakes is part of the learning process. Let me say that one more time. Making mistakes is part of the learning process. Okay. Now think about, for example, when you learn how to ride a bicycle. Well, of course, you had to fall a few times, right, before you could ride it. Or when you're a baby learning how to walk, you had to fall many times before you could walk. Okay? It's part of the learning process. Now, once you understand this, wouldn't you want to speed up that process to help reach your goal faster? So, in other words, make more mistakes. Okay? Keep making them faster and faster, and that'll truly speed up your learning process, and you'll reach your goal much, much faster. Okay? Now, if you try to be perfect every single time, that'll slow down your process. It is destructive to your process, in fact. Now, that's a natural tendency because that's the way we've been taught to think in school and in our classes. Okay? So I'm telling you now, I totally believe we've got to make mistakes frequently and often in order to speed up our learning process. Now, the other thing is we have to learn from our mistakes, of course. So we have to apply what we've learned to future interactions, okay? We can't just keep making the same mistakes over and over. We have to learn from them, and the key is to make new mistakes, okay? And the more you keep making new mistakes, keep learning from them, applying them to your future interactions, I guarantee you the faster you will achieve your English goals. Okay, so here's your action plan for today's lesson. Number 1, always speak with confidence. Number 2, know that the listener wants to communicate with you. And number 3, make lots of mistakes and make new mistakes. Okay, so there's one thing I want to leave you with, and the good news about this is that it doesn't cost a thing. The only cost to you is changing your mindset. And everyone can do that. Everyone has the chance, has the ability to raise their level to English 2.0. So I want you to really think about these things and overcome these fears as fast as you possibly can, and we'll see you at level English 2.0. Hello, in today's pronunciation point, we're going to talk about 3 famous, very well-known brands or companies that are often mispronounced. So let's get started. The first one is the most famous fast food restaurant in the world, and that of course is McDonald's. Alright, so if you say the Japanese katakana version, of course it is very distorted. It is makudo. And so that often causes a problem for my students to pronounce the real name in English. So how do we say it naturally? How do we pronounce it naturally? Alright, so first let's take it in 3 pieces. The first part is Mick. Okay? Now a lot of people often think it is actually Mac because of maybe Big Mac, or in Japanese it's Makku. But actually in English, MC is more of a Mick, not Mac. Okay? So Mick. Okay? Mick. Okay? Now the second part, the middle part, is Don. Don. Okay? Like the name Don. Okay? And the last part is Olds. Olds. Okay, like old, and then just add the S. So when you put all 3 of those together, you get McDonald's. McDonald's. Okay? So try that one. Okay, and I really want to stress that because when you visit America or Canada or wherever, it's going to be very hard to communicate makudo narudo. So you need to have and I've heard my students have told me they've tried to say that, but they can't, the native people can't understand McDonald's, so when it's spoken like that. So be sure to practice that one if you're looking for McDonald's. The next brand or business name that is often mispronounced is a very famous furniture store from Sweden, I believe, and that is IKEA. IKEA. Okay. Now, this is a very easy name to kind of incorporate into Japanese because the letters kind of match up with Japanese. So, however, the pronunciation changes. It becomes IKEA. IKEA. So, in English, all you have to do is just change the first sound to I, not E. I, and not K, but ki. Okay, like a key that you use to unlock your door. Okay? IKEA. IKEA. Okay? This weekend, I'm going to go to IKEA. Okay, and the final brand or business that is often mispronounced, is becoming more popular in Japan, and it is a big warehouse wholesale store, and that is in English called Costco. Costco. All right. Again, in katakana that becomes Costco. Costco. And so be careful of that extra O there, okay? So that is a good example of one of those extra O sounds we want to cut. All right, so the first part is cost, okay? Just as in a regular word cost, not costo. Cost. Okay? And the last part is simply ko. Okay? Costco. Costco. All right, nice job. So you can use all three of those in the simple example of this weekend, I'm going to Costco. This weekend, I'm going to IKEA. This weekend, I'm going to McDonald's. Okay, so those you can practice with that simple sentence pattern. All right, so please practice those, and yeah, when you visit America or another country overseas, you won't have any problem communicating those particular store names. So good luck and keep practicing. All right, we're going to have to end it there for today, but thank you again so much for watching. If you have a question, please send it to me, ask@alsensei.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter @alsensei, and I'd be happy to get back to you or answer any questions you might have. Also, if you'd like to take part in my brand new pronunciation course, part of the Natural English full course, and this is part 1 of that course. If you would like to take that course for free, absolutely free, please go to alsensei.com/tips, and you'll find how to sign up. Find out how to sign up right there. All you need is your name and email address, and you'll be right on your way to natural sounding pronunciation. So thank you again for watching today, and we will see you next time.